Today we're going to look at the Ruger SP101 and compare it to the Ruger LCR, both in 357 Magnum. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. But first, before we get started, let's have a little toast and talk about what happened this weekend at the ranch. To the sunny slopes of long ago. There we go. Now I can relax a little. The work's all done for the day. Right now, I cannot remember any time since I bought this place that there has been this much ice out there. Even in the spring when things melt and it freezes up at night and you come out in the morning and it's kind of icy because things there's not a lot of place for it to drain. Well, there's no place for it to drain right now. We had that negative 30 degrees and the next week it warmed up and rained 6 inches. That I thought was bad because we had a lot of ice because of that. But between then and now we've had snow, negative 16, negative 30 degrees. Now it's warmed back up. Last week it warmed up above freezing and it rained. And now it's below freezing again. And there's like 8 inches, and I'm not making this up, 8 inches of solid ice everywhere out there. The snow is virtually gone. It's just solid ice everywhere. Up near the buildings, out in the fields, everywhere. You're taking your life. MrHolster's taking his life in his own hands, just walking out to feed the animals. I fell down so many times today, it's embarrassing to even talk about it. And that really is the whole weekend. It was just Jack and Spur and I, well, Shorty too, but we don't talk much about Shorty. Jack, Spur, and I took care of the whole place because the wife and the kids went down to the cities, to her mom's place for the weekend. So that left us untethered. Yeah, we got to do whatever we wanted, and if it weren't for the ice, it would have been a very enjoyable weekend. It was pretty enjoyable anyways, but the ice kind of slows things down when you have to go out. Normally takes about 2 hours to take care of the animals and feed them every day. Well, 2.5 hours I'd say. But it takes like 4 hours right now because when I'm out there, MrHolster looks like Tim Conway doing his old man routine when he's out there walking from building to building on that ice. Because I don't want to fall down. So let's get to, now that we've wasted 4 minutes of your life, you'll never, actually 4 minutes and 15 seconds of your life, you'll never ever get back again. Talking about things that, yeah, who cares? So let's look at the guns. Let's start with the LCR. It's fastly become one of my favorite snubby revolvers ever. And the only thing I didn't like about this gun when I got it, really didn't like, was the ramp front sight. Now they've improved that since I bought this gun. They now put a white outline on it, on the ramp front sight, a big, major improvement. However, I was able to, because they make this big X night sight. I was able to put that on the front, and if you watch my channel, you're getting bored at seeing this for the 14th millionth time. But yeah, I was able to put that on, and I like having a night sight on any gun I'm going to use at night. Yeah, so I can see the front sight. Able to do that. It was very simple to do. Anyone could do it. If MrHolster could do it, anybody could do it. That's a real positive to this gun, to be able to put a night sight on. That's one of the things I didn't like about my 642s, is that integral ramp sight that was part of the barrel on those. You basically have to take them to a gunsmith to have them done correctly, to have a night sight put on them. Big expense on a $400 gun. So this is a 5-shot 357 Magnum, has a stainless steel frame, and the frame is right here. It's got a stainless steel barrel liner on this gun. It has a polymer fire housing control, trigger housing fire control. I think they call it fire control housing. Fire control. Whatever. Any rate, the trigger guard and the grip and the area covering up the internal hammer is polymer, which should, like a Glock, give a little flex to the gun and make it a little easier on the recoil. It has what they're touting as a special cam on the trigger to make the trigger pull smoother and lighter, and it is smoother than lighter than my Smith & Wesson 642, I will say. Probably not much lighter, more smoother than lighter, but at any rate, it's got a nice trigger pull and a very nice hefty trigger. It is recessed inside there, but it's a thick edged and a nice smooth trigger, very comfortable on the finger. Hogue Tamer rubber grips with a little bit of a soft give area right here, and the rubber grips are kind of a twofold thing, or a good and a bad thing, in that it really helps you to hold the gun and come back on target because it doesn't slip in your hand at all. On the other side, a concealed carry gun with rubber grips, it does tend to, your clothes do tend to hang on it and can be a giveaway. So, kind of a twofold thing. They do make the grip in a G10 version, Hogue does, which are very attractive grips. But this has kind of grown on me, and at my stage in life, and for the amount of years I've been carrying, it really isn't that big a concern anymore. Yeah, because nobody looks at MrHolster. Okay. We'll compare the size and some of the other features on this to the other one side by side as I talk about it. So let's move on to the SP101. This is a fantastic gun. I've been so happy with it. And if you've watched my prior videos, you know I bought this gun because it was on sale at the local gun shop for $450. And what I really wanted was the 3-inch barreled version with the spurless hammer and double action only, which they did not have. And this is part of the problem that when I buy Ruger revolvers, I have found over the years it's best to buy one that you can look at first, because there are certain things that they don't necessarily get right at the factory on these things. And most pointedly, lots of Rugers I've looked at over the years, the barrels have not been squared up with the frame, and they've been a little underturned or overturned, and as a result, the front sight, which is set into that barrel, ends up being crooked, which is not conducive with having good shot placement. So I like to actually see the ones. I'm hesitant to order one, so I didn't want. Plus, this was on sale at $450, a very good value. So what I did is I bought this and decided, well, 2.5-inch barrel, or this one's actually 2.25-inch barrel. So it's a shorter barrel than I wanted. I wanted the 3-inch barrel, but I decided, being the cheap guy I am, I could live with it. But I ended up not being able to live with the hammer spur on it, because if you're going to use a gun for defensive purposes, a revolver, it's a big no-no to cock it. That's only going to get you into trouble, and I've talked about that on other videos, so I won't dwell on it. But as a result, what I did is I despurred it somewhat, took off that spur myself, and made the gun, removed the full cock notch on it, so you cannot cock this hammer at all. It is now strictly a double action only revolver. To compare these two, you'd be looking at this revolver with the spurless double action only hammer, which is available. Just so you know, that would make, because this one is a double action only gun also. It has the hammer inside of this housing here, so you can't cock it. It's double action only. There's no cocking in this gun either. So let's look at some of the specifics of these two guns. Both of them 357 Magnum. This one, the LCR, is a 5-shot and weighs 17.1 ounces. This one, the SP101, is a 5-shot but weighs 26 ounces. So you're looking at basically half a pound difference between the two, which is a lot of weight, and at the same time not a lot of weight. If this is going to be your carry gun, your primary carry gun, a half a pound, says when it's still under 30 ounces, is not that big a deal. This gun weighs about the same as a Glock 19, which would be considered to be a lightweight compact automatic. So your weight has not gotten out of control here. However, a half a pound's a half a pound. So I say right there, if you're going to carry inside the waistband or on the belt or in a shoulder holster, this half a pound is not that big a deal. However, if you're going to put it in an ankle holster, that half a pound's a big deal. Dragging a half a pound extra on your leg around is a big deal, and I'd be going here. So I lean towards the LCR a little bit on the weight for the lighter weight. Barrel length, 2.2 1/4 inch barrel, and you know that extra size versus this, which is 1.87 inch barrel. The extra size in the barrel, I think, is an advantage. Gives you a little longer sight radius, and it sits in a holster better with a longer barrel. I've always said that the longer barrel sits better in a holster as long as you're not getting, 6-inch barrel, then you're going a little far. But anything that's going to be an inch or 3/4 inch longer, I go to the advantage of the longer barrel because you've got a longer sight radius and it sits better in the holster. It gives something down in the holster to hold it and a little more weight down in the holster. The shorter the barrel, the easier it is for, especially inside the waistband, for that gun to pop out. So I give the advantage here to the SP101 for that little bit longer length and barrel, and of course these are available. This is available also in a 3-inch version and a 4.2 inch version. But we're looking at snubbies here in the smallest sense, so we're only going to compare these two. Just thought I'd mention that. Overall length on the LCR is 6.5 inches. Length on the SP101, 7.2. So you got a little bit longer because of that longer barrel. Again, in an ankle holster, that's going to make a big difference. Other than that, it's all in the barrel and it sits better in a holster. So I don't think that really matters. We've already ruled out this one's not the one to put in an ankle holster, if that's what you're looking for. I like to go for the 357 Magnum versus the 38 because if I'm going to shoot a lot of plus P 38 ammunition through it, I won't have to worry about it with these. That's why I've picked the 357 Magnum. What these two guns have when you shoot them is an advantage to this one. That heavier half a pound makes a really big difference. This is like shooting a 22. The recoil, of course I'm an old revolver guy, the recoil, very minimal. This one with a lighter weight has obviously far more recoil impulse than the SP101. And there you have it, guys. I've eaten up 15 minutes of your life you'll never get back again, and all I've really told you is this one's heavier, this one's lighter. There's the major difference. Ankle holster, this one. All around shooting, this one. And that's about it. Both very well made. This one all stainless steel, built like a tank. It would last you a lifetime and your kids a lifetime and probably their kids a lifetime, and it would still be working. This one, I've had absolutely no problems with it. It basically is built quite similar to this, except for the grip and trigger guard portions of the gun. However, a lot beefier. A lot beefier. All you have to do is look at the cylinder. There's a lot more cylinder, a lot more weight. I'd have to give this one the advantage for it being able to last a long time. On the other hand, there are things to be said about having a gun that isn't bright and shiny. A lot easier to see those sights because the sun's not reflecting off of the gun. Really, the two guns are fairly comparable though, except for that weight. I like a revolver for a lot of reasons, and I did some checking before I did this video on instances of gunfights, and I found the same thing I've always found, is we're really keeping track of the police instances but not the civilians so much. It's always been said gunfights happen within 21 feet. Most of them occur between 0 and 3 feet. Only 3 shots are usually shot at most, and that gets the job done. And in trying to review and looking at the statistics more current, because I'm an old guy, I'm going off of what the old adages were. The only thing I found that's really the same now as it was back in the day is 80% of the people that get shot live to talk about it. Well, they might not live to talk about it, but they lived through the incident. Sorry, a little black humor there. The rest of it, I would say though, when it comes to a civilian's use of a handgun in defense, it probably more than likely is going to be within 21 feet, and more times than not, more up close and personal, as in you're going to be struggling with the person practically. And a revolver has a real advantage there because you can't put it out of battery by pushing the barrel against the individual. And if that's where you're at, the one real advantage to that is you'll have about a 30% increase in the wound channel when that barrel is pushed up against the person when you pull the trigger. But that's the advantage to carrying a revolver. The disadvantages, of course, are you only have 5 shots versus an automatic capable of a lot of shots. But I'm seeing nowadays the trend is to people to carry the smallest guns they can. They're carrying little 380s with 6 shots. They're carrying XDs and shields with 5 to 8 shots. Not much different than carrying a revolver at the point you're carrying a gun so small that the magazine only holds 5 shots or 6 shots. So the trends are the smaller guns like that. It makes the revolver have a little more advantage than it's had in the past, but it does, in my mind, have a huge advantage in the fact you can't push it out of battery. And the ease of learning how to use it and the ease of maintenance. Of course, your training, you're going to have to train on the reloads big time to be sure you could do it. That's one thing I didn't talk about that I should. Now that I've wasted 19 minutes and 36 seconds of your life we'll never get back in, I might as well talk about this. This gun is a little slightly easier to reload. When you do your reload, you have complete clearance. Oh, well, you can see that. Not very. You have complete clearance up against the gun and the grips, where the LCR is getting small enough and tight enough that your speed loader is going to be bouncing against that rubber grip and is going to slow you down. So there is a real advantage to the SP101 on reloading versus the LCR, but again, with practice, the advantage is going to become pretty minimal. So there you are, pards. I thought I'd do that little video and compare the two. Of course, this gun, my SP101, is just a fantastically accurate firearm. And I really, really like this gun. And given the two, my choices, if I knew I was going to be in the daylight, I would pick this one all day long over this one. Now, of course, you can put a night sight on this. I just have not gotten around to it because it's a little more involved than putting the night sight on the LCR, because of the LCR has a pin running through the sight. You pop the pin out and there's a blade coming up, and you just drop the other sight on top, put the new pin in. This one, you have to drive the pin out of the barrel itself and put a new sight in there, and you'll have to fit that sight to the slot because it doesn't just drop right in, and you'll have to maybe even drill out your hole in the barrel to get the hole to line up. Not as simple a deal. It's almost to the point where it can easily be done by you, but you might want to consider taking it to a gunsmith to have it done, because it's getting challenging enough, and the risk of wrecking something is a lot higher than it is on this gun. But this is just my experience, and I thought I'd tell you that because I think both guns are very good defensive firearms. I grew up in a time, I worked in a time where, unless you were working for a police agency during the Clinton administration, it got very dicey on the firearms you carried if you were working privately. And one of the reasons, obviously, is were you to end up in court, if you were carrying a gun you had that was legal but no longer available because it was banned, basically the magazines, high-capacity magazines, it would reflect badly upon you in a court of law that you were carrying that. Police officers, of course, could carry them at the time, but all the magazines were labeled law enforcement only, and even the police officers had a problem. They had to make sure, when you went home for work, you had to make sure you didn't have any magazines around that could be used in a defensive situation by your spouse, or they'd be going to jail for a felony because they used a law enforcement only magazine. And the whole attitude by the general public, and even nowadays you still have this problem, because if you end up in court, you're going to have 50% of the jury is going to be people that don't understand guns, don't use guns, don't like guns, or have been bombarded by the media to think they're all evil. And the other half, if you're lucky, will be people that have had experience with guns and don't think that way. But you're going to still have some of that today, because a lot of people out there are still hanging on to the Clinton era ban attitude of the time. And out of all the guns you can have, if you end up in that situation, the revolver is going to be the least negatively looked upon, followed by the single stack magazine automatics probably. But I wouldn't make your decision on what to use based on that. Just thought I'd throw that out, because for many years there, when I worked in the private sector, I carried a Smith & Wesson 657 .41 Magnum, a very good round, and I did that pretty much most of the time, unless I was working on something that involved a high-profile individual that basically had the clout that it didn't matter, and I could carry my high-capacity magazines without quite as much concern. But I really enjoyed carrying that revolver, and I think a lot of people out there are missing the bet where a revolver might work quite well for them, and they might actually be more comfortable with it. Of course, a small snubby like this is going to be the hardest of revolvers to learn how to shoot well. That goes to the SP101. That's what's in its favor, is it's a heavier gun. It's going to be easier for the novice to learn how to shoot well than the LCR will be. But the grips that have been put on this, and this is a well thought out, well engineered gun, it minimizes that problem a great deal, along with the cam on this trigger, making a little smoother trigger pull. There you go, just more things that popped in my head, and that's 25 minutes and 52 seconds of your life you'll never, ever, ever get back again. I'm sorry for that.